stepping inside the principal's office, building community with the right synergy. Stepping.
A lot of times this topic comes up with leaders. It's either met with
it's a safe place to be. Well, leaders can be free. Come learn new lessons.
gap is closing.
Feel free to ask a question. The principal's office. Inside the principal's office.
I mean, are you guys principals or middle school students?
Inside the principal's office.
Good morning, and thank you for stepping inside the principal's office with us this morning. I am so excited to be back with my co-host, Charles Williams, and with these two amazing guests. Inside the principal's office is a community of learners. As school leaders, there's such a great job done of engineering environments for teachers to get together and collaborate. Well, this is a collaborative space for school leaders, for those who are aspiring to be school leaders, or for teachers that just want to have a better understanding of their school leader. I'm Michael McWilliams. Everyone calls me Mac, and I am one half of this awesome team that brings you this every other week here on SchoolRubric social media platforms. I am so excited to be joined by my co-host, Charles, all the way from Chicago, Illinois. I'm in Texas, by the way. And we've only been in the same room, maybe 4 times in our lives? But we're like besties, BFFs. Don't you love... Oh, there you go. Don't you love technology? What's going on, Charles? It's been a minute.
Mac, it has, and I am looking forward. Just so you know, I am trying to find every excuse to make my way down to Texas. So I'm like, oh look, I'm in the neighborhood. I got to go see Mac. So
yeah, we're gonna have to work that out. And I love Garrett's popcorn, so I'm looking for an excuse too. I mean, but yeah, the popcorn doesn't hurt.
Oh yeah. Well, good morning, Mac. I love being in this space with you. I cannot wait until we're able to connect. In fact, I talk about you throughout the week because I'm like, I got this amazing friend and mentor. So thank you.
Oh, wow. Now, pre-show, y'all were talking a lot of noise about that. Now we get on camera and it's, this mentor and this person. I'm writing that in.
So thank you again. Welcome to the show, everyone. So excited to be here. As Max said, I am here in Chicago. I know I used to come on and say that I was the principal of a school. I am now an AP, and I was not demoted. Most people are like, what, did you get demoted? No. I willingly stepped into a different role because leadership is not about a title. And that is going to be a whole thing that I continue to talk about. But it is allowing me to continue doing this work just in another space. So I am now the AP at the phenomenal Michele Clark, still here in Chicago, where it's always a great day to be an Eagle. But in addition to doing those things, I also host a podcast, the Counter Narrative Podcast. Obviously, I'm in this space. And I have the honor and privilege of getting to connect and speak and work with people all across the country, which is how I happen to find out that Lisa and I are connected. So I'm going to turn it over to our amazing guest here. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then Mike, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, I'm Lisa. I'm from Kansas City, and currently I'm the assistant principal at Henry Leavenworth Elementary in Leavenworth, Kansas. And we are connected. So I worked in KCK for a long time, 14 years, and there's a lot of connections there. So through the community, and we just happen to live in an area where we have surrounding districts, and we all work collaboratively, and we jump around and help each other out. And so, yeah, I bet we have more than just one connection.
I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, yeah, my name is Michael Fulton. I'm an assistant principal at Owen Elementary School in the Colony. Just like random side fact here, it's actually the elementary school that I went to in 4th and 5th grade. So I've been able to kind of come full circle with that. And if we want to talk about connections, I would not be in this seat today if it wasn't for the guy right up above me there, Mr. Mac. Brought me into education All right. So thank you, sir. I
Come on,
appreciate
Full
you
Train.
seeing me.
When I met him, they were calling him Full Train. He was.
They were. I worked for a fundraising company that went around to elementary schools. Booster. I'm sure probably some of y'all have heard of it. Booster-thon, running laps, high energy, high-fiving kids. It was great. But yeah, made the jump to the classroom and haven't looked back. So it's been a good experience. And thanks for having me on the show today.
I have a question for you, Mike. Did you spend a lot of time in that AP's office that you now set up in?
Do I spend a lot of time in it?
Did you set when you were an elementary student? Did you?
Oh, did I?
I
I plead the fifth. No, I wasn't in here that much. I think I remember the one time I got in trouble in fifth grade, and
the one time. Okay, all right, we'll let it slide.
It's a bizarre experience stepping into your childhood school. I remember taking my daughter to the classroom I was in third grade, and I'm like, okay, this is really weird. Or sitting in meetings with teachers that I had that are principals now, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm still scared.
Wow. Well, we are so excited for y'all being here today. We know the format of our time together. We have a couple of questions that we're going to anchor our conversation into today. From occasionally, you'll see me look down because I'm the guy I'm kind of watching the chat on Facebook. And, from time to time, if you have a question, if you're watching, just put your thoughts and put your questions in the chat. And from time to time, we address your concerns and your questions as well. If you are watching us, we want you to share this broadcast. If you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, share, and let others know about this space. We're going to jump right in because we want to honor your Saturday morning time. We're going to jump right in with discussion. Question number uno.
When looking to set goals and define an endpoint, we need to know where the starting point is. As leaders, how do you assess your organization to determine where you are and what your starting point looks like?
Great question. Today, of course, we're talking about beginning with the end in mind. Lisa, we want you to jump in and give us your thoughts on this question.
Perfect. Okay. So when I think about beginning with the end in mind, I think back to even first year teacher. What is it that I want my students to accomplish by the end? And so then from there, you can create your goals, you create your assessments, you see how students are doing, you have your checkpoints for your formatives. And I believe the same goes for a building. So at the end of whatever it is that you want to accomplish as your team, what is it? What does that look like? What's that exemplar? How do you know then when you've reached it? But I also believe that it's not just a principal show. It's not just an AP. We as a collective, that collective efficacy is huge. So how can we come together as a team to really determine what that end goal is and then build that backwards together?
Excellent. That backwards design approach that we use in good instruction. Michael Fulton, talk to me, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably going to say, let me piggyback on Lisa because I know she's going to bring up so many great points today. But I mean, I think if it really kind of that backwards design can kind of go with anything. If you're looking, whether you're looking at improving, student scores on district assessments or state assessments, whether you're looking to build on or increase the culture of the school, you've really got to start by getting that feedback at the very beginning of the year, diving into the data, seeing where there are those areas for improvement. And again, I think Lisa mentioned it, just kind of that collaborative piece, being able to jump in with all stakeholders, kind of get that input, and then set goals and move forward from there.
Good deal. Charles Williams?
Yeah, Mac, so I think one of the things that's super important, and when we do this work, is that we either we're really, really close because we're just so accustomed to it, or we get bogged down in the day-to-day, school, right, the daily activities. So I think it's really important that we take a step back and we pause and we kind of assess, like, where are we at? And a lot of people do this, and I know there's different phrases. I know there's like roses and thorns, right? Start, stop, continue. One of the things that I used to do with my staff, and I continue to do this process, is kind of looking at what are those short wins? What are the things that we can do now, like immediately? What are the things that are going to take, a little bit of time? And what are the things, and this is probably the most important, like, what are we already doing? So when we think about that goal, taking a step back and saying, okay, but where are we at right now? Like a lot of times I think we feel overwhelmed, like that's so far away. We've got so much to do. But when we stop and say, we're already doing these things, it takes some of that pressure off, right? And then when we say, hey, we could do these next things, it's just going to take a little bit to get there, right? That's awesome. Like I'm starting to feel a little bit better. So when we're looking at those long-term things, the things are going to take a little while, right? It doesn't feel so overwhelming. So I really think it's important that we pause and we take that step back and say, where are we at? Because we're so quick just to jump in, and we're flowing. And then when we look up, like, it's kind of like a dog paddle, right? Like you're working. And then you're like, but I really haven't made any progress, right? So those are my initial thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that we have to take that GPS model. I didn't talk about my new deals, but
I said not MapQuest.
No, what's a MapQuest? You're showing your age, Charles. What is a MapQuest? What is that?
It's on the MySpace. It's fine.
I take that GPS approach, and that is red dot, green dot, blue squiggly line. I think that number one, anytime you're thinking about where you want to be, it has to be shared. And so I think that I heard that come out, that it can't be one guy in an office saying, these are our goals and we're assessing where we are and all of those things. But it has to be red dot, green dot, blue squiggly lines. Like when you leave here and you want to go to the gym, and it's a new gym. So you get that red dot on your GPS that says that's where the gym is. And that green dot is, this is where you are located now. And then you usually have 2 or 3 options of a blue squiggly line. One might have tolls, one doesn't have tolls. One is marked as the fastest route. And then together you decide, this is where we want to be. This is where we are. How are we going to choose to close the gap? John is in the chat and he's talking about looking at data. That's when you have those conversations centered around data. Data is going to tell you a story. Data is going to tell you what to do. And then as a group, this is where we want to be. This is what the win looks like. We have a shared vision of what we are becoming. We've had conversations that are anchored and centered in student data and staff data, parent data. And now we're going to decide which blue squiggly line we're going to follow to get there.
Mac, I love that. And it also makes a lot of sense of why I've never made it to the gym, because I've just gotten in the car and started driving and hoped for the best. No, I just.
Okay, next time I just want you to start walking to the gym, and then you can get your workout. When you never make it.
There you go. Regardless of the outcome, I still got something to do.
I love that analogy. I was actually just having this conversation yesterday where with a teacher, and we were talking about where they want to go. And they're like, well, my team's thinking this, but I'm thinking this. I'm like, well, do you take the same route home every day? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you could probably go home 3 different ways. You're all going to have that end goal if you know what you're reaching for. It doesn't matter how you get there, as long as we get there. And so I think it's being open to those ideas and it being okay that you want to veer a little because you're being responsive to what your students need. And so I think I love that analogy. I'm going to totally use the blue squiggly line.
Use it. What blue squiggly line are we on?
Well, and if I could jump in there,
never changes. The red dot never changes.
Well, if I could jump in there a little bit, kind of that collective kind of efficacy piece, like as leaders on the campus, what we have to do is we have to kind of establish that culture with our teachers. So if we do get a little bit off, that they are kind of that voice that's like rerouting, make the U-turn, right? Like let them be the voice that kind of shows you that piece on where you kind of need to transfer back and get back on the right path. And so I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, and I think I love that the culture element, because I think providing that space and providing that safety of saying, you know what, we're not feeling this is the right route. I think we need a detour, and having that culture, that's the only way you're going to get that voice in there. So I think that's a super important point, is to lay that foundation, to have a safe space, to have those hard conversations when they're needed.
So I love this analogy, right, of this GPS, this right kind of figuring out where we're going to go. And sometimes for those of us who didn't have GPSs, right, we preferred atlases, right? And so to give you an idea of that, Mac, there's a point to this, because I was going to say a physical. He's like, where are you going with this?
Where are you going with this one? We did not do this in rehearsal, Charles. No.
But if you would like a physical idea, right, to say, hey, what can be a guide, literally a guide, for my journey as I'm going throughout the school year. And this is just something, again, we constantly do to let you know about a book that Mac and I wrote along with our co-host Rob. So we would encourage you to pick it up, because this is literally what it does. As we're starting off our school year, this gives you 40 weeks. So you could read it all at once. You could read through one message a week, and just really reflecting and assessing, where am I at right now? How am I showing up? Am I in the right spot along my journey? And it's broken down into different areas like servant leadership. What am I learning as the lead learner in our building? And of course, focusing on instructional leadership. So we would encourage you, hop into Amazon, make sure that you pick up your copy today, and we just enjoy the book. And please let us know your thoughts as we go through. I did see a few individuals. We already talked about John, but Tina, Rob, all of you, please make sure that as we continue through this conversation, because we're about to jump into question 2, we would love to hear your thoughts. And please let us know if you have any questions for us as we continue on. So let's get ready for question number 2.
Setting goals and beginning with the end in mind requires buy-in from various stakeholders. What are some ways to involve stakeholders in the process and find both the willingness and availability in the implementation process?
So this is a great question. I know that we started talking about it already. It's this idea that, and we say this in this space, right? If leadership is lonely, well, then you're doing it wrong, because it should not be lonely by any means. So how do we build that space, that collective space, that collaborative space, as we're going on this journey down the blue squiggly line? So Mike, I'm going to bring it over to you first.
All right. Well, I think the first thing that kind of pops into my mind is, as I was working kind of towards a leadership role, I read this book called Collaborative Leadership, and in there it had the 3 M's, and it was meet, model, and motivate. And I've kind of carried that with me. I mean, this is my 4th year in administration, and I like that meet part, like meeting people where they're at. Right? Whether that's teachers in their classroom, whether that's parents out in the community, starting those conversations and having those conversations, being willing to partake in those conversations and meeting people where they're at, kind of model, learn from them, right? Model what maybe the expectations or kind of what you're trying to go, and then motivate people to kind of be successful with whatever you're trying to improve, whether it's campus culture, like I said in the beginning, or we're trying to improve test scores and you're meeting with teachers and kind of modeling different lesson styles. And really, I think that motivate piece, we all know it, right? But I think sometimes that can get lost, right? Is you can't just get up there and preach. You really got to get in, dive in, and motivate people to be successful with you.
And that, yeah, I love all those things, because something I say a lot, and I probably am a broken record, but I truly believe in it, is the voice and choice. So if there are so many professionals that I think are silenced too often, so I want to make sure that there is a voice for that, because there's so many perspectives that I don't see, or maybe your neighbor doesn't see. And until those voices come out, we wouldn't even know they existed. So really thinking about that passion thing. So what is it that your people are passionate about? Is it the community? Is it your teams? Is it PLC? Whatever it might be, that passion, bring those teams together, have a task force, let them go at it, and really put people where they need to be. Sorry, I have a fly. Where they need to be, and to support that, that goal, whatever that goal might be.
Thank you, Lisa. A lot of times on these long journeys that we take from the red dot to the green dot, you get a little hungry and you need to make a pit stop. And so maybe I would like a Mac Nugget right now. So Mac's like, I'm done. I'm done.
One of the things that I think that I would address is in the question, it talks about getting buy-in from teachers. I don't want them to buy in or make an investment. I want them to have ownership.
Mhm.
I want them to know that the planning process, the let's identify why we exist, what we hope to become in the future, that is something that we do together. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to go from this idea of involving stakeholders, but letting stakeholders know that it's their thing to do.
Right.
And when I talk about stakeholders, I think that we need to find ways in our schools where we include everyone, that not only teachers and staff members have ownership, but parents have ownership, and the community in which the school sits and serves
Mhm.
has ownership in the planning process, and that every person owns a part of that planning. A wise man once said, "A man won't tear down a fence that he helped to build." And oftentimes, we just want people to buy into a process that we're the custodian of. I think the wisest thing that we can do as leaders is to, again, be that collaborative leader, share the process, and give the space for people to truly own the process and not just buy into it.
So I love what you guys are saying, and as I was thinking about this process, I really think it's important, even that we might be able to take it a step back, because I know a lot of times as I speak to leaders, they say, "Look, Charles, I'm trying to do those things, right? I'm creating space for people to become involved. I'm creating that space. I'm welcoming them in." And my question then is like, well, before you could have them be collaborative, right? Before you could have them own what they're doing, are you equipping them? Are you empowering them to take that step? Because you can't just open the door and say, "Come on in," right? Like, before you get them to that point, before they feel comfortable stepping up to the table, stepping into those processes, they need to know, like, hey, I have the tools, I have the knowledge, I have the experience. I'm going to be heard and valued. And so are you creating that space? And I know Mac and I have talked a lot about that there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done before we can make it look like this. You can't just say, "All right, time for team meetings," right? And people are like, "Yeah, I'm joining," right? You have those people. But in order for it to be effective and to maximize that potential, are you doing the pre-work so that this isn't just a thing that we do once in a while, but this is who we are. This is what we believe. This is what we live each and every single day. And so I would encourage you as a leader, if you're watching this, like, don't just, there's a lot of pre-work to be done to get to these points, but don't let that delineate you, right? Don't say, "Hey, look, we got to get there now. We've got these meetings scheduled. We got to get to this point." Like, yeah, it's coming, but if you don't do that pre-work, you're never going to get there. So work on it now, and you're going to get to this space. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like, I'm going back to our analogy, right? It's just taking care of that vehicle before you take the journey.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that a leader can do to build this type of capacity is look among your school and identify a guiding coalition. A leadership team that represents the demographics of your school, grade levels, tenure on campus, new teacher, old teacher, only taught in that building, and learn together. That's that prep and that maintenance part of it. Is you need leadership throughout your building, and because if you don't create that capacity throughout your building, everyone's always going to look down the hall to the principal's office. But you have to find people that you can learn with, that can lead the work within the halls and within the team buildings. I think that's very, very important, because we want this ownership, not just in the planning and this is our SMART goal and these are the things that we're going to do. You want that for you to actually obtain your goals. You need that level of ownership throughout the entire process. And I think that is another thing that we miss sometimes, is that we include all these stakeholders to identify, this is our goal for the year and this is what we're going to do. But then there's a great falling away, and the responsibility and the burden then lies on a principal or a principal in an AP, but that same level of involvement, engagement, and ownership has to be carried throughout the entire process, not just identifying red dot, this is where we're going, but the identification of where we are and what methods we're going to choose to close the gap between where we are and where we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mac, are you saying that on those road trips, like you shouldn't be the only person driving while the rest of your family is sleeping?
Sleeping, right, or playing the Xbox? Is that what y'all play?
I know you guys are watching. It's a message.
The Game Boy, I think it is. Yeah. Just don't let me do all the driving. But every now and then, let me get out and stretch my legs and use the bathroom and get back in and sit in the back and eat pork rinds.
You got to get a little help from your friends. That's all I'm saying.
No, I love it. I think you're bringing up some great points there, especially about just like kind of helping establish and motivate those teacher leaders on the campus and letting them kind of drive and lead that initiative, and really taking almost kind of like you're like the backseat driver that's kind of sitting in the very back of the van saying, hey, y'all, you're doing a great job. Yeah, keep up the good work, right? Like I think sometimes as leaders, one of the mistakes that can be made is you want to like, oh, I'm the administrator and let me be out in front of everything and look at me, right? Well, it's not about that. It really has to be kind of that servant leadership and pushing other people to kind of be out there and be in front and lead the initiative. So I think what Mac was saying about that is really important. You have that like top, I think John Maxwell has the 25-50-25 rule, right? There's that top 25% of your staff that's going to be gung-ho for whatever you do. Well, utilize them, right? Motivate them to go out and set the example for the rest of the school community.
Excellent. Boy, I tell you, this has been a very robust conversation today, beginning with the end in mind, goal setting. Believe it or not, we are at the point in our show, one of my favorite portions. Yeah, I'm looking at that too, Charles. Look at those lips. Ideas that stick. We don't want to just come and have a conversation, but we want to walk away with some actionable items, some things that we can do. So what is one thing you will do as leaders this year to stay committed to the goals you set so that you have the highest probability of success? Mm-hmm. I will go first, and then we'll hear from Lisa, then we'll hear from the other Michael, and then we will end with the ever so poignant Charles. I think that it is very important to progress monitor. Mm-hmm. You have to create checkpoints along the way. If we want to use this red dot, green dot, blue squiggly line, when we are going from here to a familiar space, we know that there are certain landmarks that we look for that let us know we're going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So we have to create those checkpoints that if this is where we're going to be by the end of the year, by October, this is where we should be. By December, this is where we should be. By February, this is where we should be. So you have to create those checkpoints, and you have to monitor. If you're going to Canada, the worst thing to do is to be, we're just killing this analogy. If I'm in Texas and I'm going to Florida, if I take a nap, I need to wake up. I do not need to see Albuquerque, New Mexico. I just don't. Yeah, I just don't. No, that's not right. So you have to know if we're going in the right direction. We have to have such a vivid picture of what the wind looks like, mm-hmm. that we know when things are not looking like we're going in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? If we want to get kindergarten students to a D by the end of May, and it is February, and half of your class is still reading on an A, you have to create checkpoints. Mm-hmm. for whatever you say, this is what our future looks like, this is what our red dot looks like. You have to create checkpoints, and you have to pace yourself toward that. So create checkpoints, monitor. And I was real wordy. Lisa, go.
Okay, I'm going back again to that whole voice and choice piece, but also sustainable practice. So what is it that we are wanting to accomplish, and then how are we going to support our team in putting it in place? Is it manageable? Is it going to get us to the desired result? And if it's not, what can we do to make it so? So really that sustainability, if we want something that we are going to create that's going to be that thing that works, we have to make sure it's doable from the go.
Absolutely. That's great. And I think if I were to kind of jump in on this, and this is more of like a specific thing that I feel like administrators can do, but it's just get that feedback. Right. In my email signature, I actually have a little feedback form that allows anybody who gets an email from me, they can click on that and they can give me kind of some direct feedback on any processes. It has, a little spot they can leave their name if they want to, or they can make it completely anonymous. And, if I could say from my first year of teaching here, shameless plug. One thing that Mac taught me and was always really good at was that feedback piece. And I realized that that's something that I need and like thrive off of every single day. And so you get that feedback, you adjust those processes and just rinse and repeat, just that continuous circle. It just keeps going. So that would be my idea that sticks.
Yeah, I need you to send me an email because I have some feedback that I need to
That's a great idea, though. I am totally putting that on there today.
I'm just
Charles,
I was going to say, leave that link and then like it's a broken link. Like, oh, sorry, no. So Mac and ours are very, very similar, and so I was kind of debating. So I'll share a little bit and then really use the other one. But it was about this idea about being intentional about assessing progress, right? And so Mac talked about this one. So I think I'm going to shift it a little bit so that way you don't continue to hear that idea. But one of the other things I was kind of wavering between was being intentionally public about it. I think it's really important when we publicize and we make public, then people could hold us accountable. Because if it's really easy for me to mentally say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go running 3 times a week. But if I don't tell anybody and I don't do it, like, oh, no big deal, right? But if I hold people accountable, if I say, hey, I'm telling you that this is where we're going, I'm telling you this is what we want to do, then collectively now we hold each other accountable. And so I know Mac introduced me to this, and I've used this, throughout now, is these ideas of collective commitments and these collective goals. So thank you for that, buddy. But it's that idea of holding ourselves accountable during that journey. And so I know we've talked a lot about this idea of this journey, about beginning with the end in mind. And it may be a silly analogy, but I think, if nothing else, when you're like going throughout life and you're pulling up your GPS, you're going to be like, yeah, I remember that awesome episode of Inside the Principal's Office. But it is a great analogy of what we do on a daily basis as we're getting into our vehicles, our schools, right? As we're leading towards our goals, just to make sure that we know where we're going, making sure that we're making progress, making sure that we're on the right track so we don't end up in Albuquerque. No offense to anybody in Albuquerque.
Nice balloon festival, but I wanted the beach.
Yeah, he wanted to go see Wallace. So
Exactly.
So again, so I know, and I think I just jumped into Mac's section. So I'm going to pause and just say thank you and let him take over, because that was his
You
turn.
can go ahead, Charles. You can go ahead. We all know you're, well, never mind. That's fine. I'm used to it. So what a great conversation today. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Michael. It is such an honor to watch you grow. That first day that you stepped into the office at Savannah Elementary, I knew that you were an educator. I knew that you were a leader. I want to just mention, who was it, Carla? She had a comment in about teachers being able to lead too. And I just want to speak to that. And I want to say this, that we have got to do a job in education of raising the perception of teachers. Not teachers can lead to, it is yes, teachers are leaders. Like Charles said at the beginning of the show, leadership has nothing to do with the title. It has nothing to do with a business card. It has nothing to do with a corner office with a window. Leadership has everything to do with influence. And we need every teacher, we need every staff member to recognize that everyone in our building is a leader, because everyone has the ability to influence their colleagues, influence students, influence parents. So we have such a hefty job of ensuring that all kids learn and all kids learn at high levels. This was episode 30. Wow. You said that awesome episode of IDOP. And I was like, well, there's like 30 of them. Which one are you talking about? Because they just keep getting, can I say this? Gooder and gooder. They keep getting gooder and gooder. Yes, they do. Yes, stop making that eye at me. They keep getting better. Pardon the common vernacular. But our next episode is September the 3rd, and we are going to be discussing staying focused. And I want our guests to pay it forward in a episode, staying focused, self, people, and systems. If you could ask one question to the panel that we have assembled for September 3rd, what question would you want us to consider? I'm going to start with Mike.
That's a good topic. I think I would love to learn from other administrators kind of how they stay motivated to continue working in the processes, especially when it isn't fitting the timeline that you kind of set mentally in your own head.
Okay, that's good. That's a viable question. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Lisa.
I'm not sure if mine's is viable, but sometimes we all have these squirrel moments. So what is the best way to keep you on track and to keep pushing forward, even though 30,000 things keep getting thrown at you to derail you? So I feel like maybe it could be a train, analogy that way, but I know I'm going to just throw in another one. So I'm wondering about that process and staying on track, if you will.
Okay, how do you manage those squirrel moments?
Yep.
Those squirrel moments. We have those often on this show. Charles, what closing words and insight do you have for us today?
Well, I just want to say, first of all, it's been an amazing episode, and thank you all. This is just me. So next episode, when I will be tuning in from Poughkeepsie, New York, because I am moving my daughter into school. She's going to be attending the Culinary Institute of America. So hopefully at some point we'll have like catering on the show, and she could be a part of that.
Yes, I was like, I need her to send me some of her homework.
Yes, yeah. But again, we want to say thank you not only to the guests in this space who have joined us today, but thank you for those of you who have joined us outside of this space, whether it was Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it may have been. Thank you for all the comments. And the conversation does not end here. So many of you have been joining our Facebook group. In fact, I think this morning I saw that 6 more of you joined this week. So just want to say thank you for joining those spaces, because that is where this conversation will continue. Just because we get together once in a while during the month and have these live conversations, we are creating that space for educational leaders to get together, to grow, to lead, and to learn together. So please make sure that you join those spaces and continue these conversations. Let us know the journeys that you are on. Let us know, where you're at along that journey, and how, as we start to think about next week or on September 3rd, how you are staying focused. Because as we know, while we're driving down those roads, we see all of the little exit now signs for all the attractions and detours, but we need to make sure that we're staying focused. So Mac, thank you as always for another amazing show, and I cannot wait to connect with you again on September 3rd.
Thank you. And between now and September 3rd, if you don't have this book, go to Amazon.com and get this book, Inside the Principal's Office. It's going to help you. It's going to help you with your ability to lead your class.
All right. Well, thank you all. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at SchoolRubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at SchoolRubric.org. Thank you.